Blog Talk Radio.
Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And in the presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I see aspiring to be free. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Within and without, above and below, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. Without and within, below and above, yeah. East, west, north, and south, I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Presence of my Lord of light and love, everything I find in tune with the divine. And here we stand in line, waiting for some sacred sign. But to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I am the light within your soul. In the essence of truth and right, love makes the circle whole. And when I call to thee, and come on bended knee, surrender to the all-pervading light and love. Reflections of the one surrounding me with love. For to find the balance is the purpose of this time. To restore the balance of the universal mind. And I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. Om Shabbat Shalom, Holy Way of the Most High. Om Shabbat holy angel of the Most High. Om Shabbat Shalom, I sense your presence. I sense your presence.
Thank you for joining me here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. My name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess tonight. The music you were listening to there at the beginning of the show is called I Sense Your Presence. It's by Shemshai, a group that I met when I was living in the Arizona area, and we connected during some of the time that I was spending in Sedona, which is the region where my guest is from tonight, is in that Sedona area. So it's kind of exciting to bring her in tonight. And I just want to extend a welcome to you, whether you're here for the first time or whether you've listened to the show before and you're joining us here again. Here at Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, I look at the different ways that compassion exists in our lives, how to remove those blocks, resistances, frustrations, and more. And some weeks I'm discussing different aspects of how compassion is in our life and how it affects our life and the different areas of compassion. And then some weeks I'm doing more exercises, practical implementations, and most of the time, particularly this year, I've got fantastic guests on the show so that you can learn about their work and how other things complement and work with compassion. I'll also highlight some musical artists along the way. This year I've been blessed with Jill Matson on the show, Stephen Halpern, Peter Cater, both Grammy nominees, and at the end of 2012, last year, we had Claire Hedin on, so some really great musical artists, and I'm working on lining some more up for 2014 as well. I focus here in my own work on helping people find and use compassion in their everyday lives. I've created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which some of you may have experienced on previous shows, and if you've missed that, you can actually go back and catch it in the archives. Matter of fact, Kevin Baird, one of the other hosts here on the network, did an interview of me last year, and you can look up the archives for that, and we ran the Genesis Clearing Statement on his show, so I highly suggest going back to that one if you're interested in learning more about that. And I've also authored now 4 books. The most recent are You, Me, Life, Dreams, and also You, Me, Life, Dreams, the Workbook. And then my first 2 books, Activating Compassion and Activating Compassion, the Workbook. In addition, I've created the Compassion Tour, which is a multi-state nationwide tour, including workshops, retreats, seminars, book signings, and fundraising events. And I'm already working on creating a tour for 2014. You can follow the events available to register on the Compassion Tour at jessieannnicholsgeorge.eventbrite.com. And there's also an option there for gifting the tour. So for those people, maybe you're not able to make it to an event or participate in an event, but you want to support the work I'm doing, for example, getting out to the fundraising events. And you can just gift money in any amount you choose. It can be, $2, it could be $20, it could be $200. Whatever works for you is great. And just a reminder that if you enjoy this show, make certain you share it with your friends, family, significant others, Facebook friends, all those social media connections out there, because I know a lot of times when I'm sharing stuff, there's something going on for somebody that I may not have even have known about, and they come back and they go, oh, thank you so much for sharing that information. It was so useful. It really hit home with something that I'm dealing with. So you never know when it's going to be just the right thing for somebody that they need to hear. And they can just use actually the same link to come back into the show that you used to get to the live show, and then they can listen to it in the archives at their convenience. So we actually have unlimited archives here, which is wonderful, so they can always go back and catch that show. And then they can also go to my Activating Compassion Facebook page at facebook.com/activatingcompassion/notes. And I also keep all the archive shows there, as well as on my webpage, which is jessieannnicholsgeorge1.com. Now, before we get started, those of you that have listened in before, you know that one of the things I like to do at the beginning of every show is delve into the 72 names of God, and that's done by Yehuda Berg. He's a Kabbalah master, and he does his work in the way that I like my work done, which is taking big, giant concepts, putting them into everyday language, and using some common names to explain what's happening in the divine. So what I like to do is to randomly open up in this book and find out what our message is. And then what I also do is I post this message on my page of the Main Street Universe tab on my website. And so you can always go back and read it during the week as well, if you'd like to do that. And let's see what he's got tonight. And we've got, God, I just love it how it always applies. It's always so applicable. Okay, the name of God that we have tonight is the death of death. And this is a really interesting one. The power of death is not limited to the physical body. The end of a friendship, the failure of a business, the dissolution of a marriage are all expressions of death. When good things are in danger of coming to an end, this name banishes death. And the insight he gives here is, make no mistake, the one angel of death is the cause whenever good things of any kind come to an end. By attacking death at the most fundamental level, we avert many of the fatalities that strike us. These letters are powerful weapons for making that attack. With each set of eyes that falls upon this name, the power of the angel of death is weakened throughout the world until ultimately the death of death takes place and immortality reigns. And the meditation that he gives with this is, meditate with total conviction and certainty upon the absolute demise of the angel of death once and for all. And I know that this particular one can actually bring up some controversy probably for people because they're thinking, well, why do we want to kill death? We've got to have the ending of these cycles and the flow. But don't mistake the differences. Things do cycle, and they do turn, and they do shift along the way. But they grow and they develop, and the key is they're cycling. They don't ever actually end when they're in the flow, when they're in this harmony, and when they're in this balance. So the death of things is actually an interruption in that flow a lot of times. So the key is we want to keep it seamlessly and move it forward. And that immortality is not so much that, for example, we live in a body forever, because that's something we're talking about tonight as well, but it's more about that we're able to keep cycling without interruption. So I'm going to be interesting to hear if my guest has anything to comment on all of that, given our topic tonight. And so before we get going into our guest tonight, I've got a little bit of something here for us to think about that's related to our topic. What do you do when faced with the thought of someone you love leaving this world? Are you like many that try to avoid thinking or talking about death and bereavement due to fear that you will bring it about? Why do we have a tendency to take or make this such a solemn and painful time of life? And while there are some cultures that still honor and value the later years in life, there are still too many places that leave people alone and empty. There are few things that break my heart more than to hear someone say that they are going to place an aging parent in a rest home because they don't want to watch them age or don't want to take care of them. This, by the way, coming from those with aging relatives that are still capable of taking care of themselves somewhat, such as able to get up on their own yet still need checking on. You know, as if spending $3,000 to $5,000 a month is going to justify their selfishness and choice to stick them oftentimes in a place where they are not well cared for or loved. And I'm not talking about those that have gotten to a point where they are beyond being cared for at home, as there are times when it's not possible to care for a loved one at home anymore. I moved to where I am simply to be closer to my mother in her later years, and I would do everything possible to keep her in her home surrounded by loving family. However, I still ask myself, am I truly ready for that time to come? Is anyone ever truly ready for that time to happen? It is really strange in some ways when you think about it. One day you are laughing and sharing time with someone, and the next they are gone. Life goes on, but the memories linger. Everything moves forward as normal, yet they are just no longer part of the scene. Why does it affect us so much more when people pass than when other forms of life pass? Are we better prepared or more accepting with other life forms passing? Is it because on average they live a shorter life and we don't develop the same attachments? Maria Hoaglund specializes in death and bereavement. Like myself, she views the end of life not to be sorrow and sadness, but a time to really embrace what life is all about. She helps people prepare for their own life to end, as well as those that they love. She realizes that the transition that happens is important to be prepared for and at peace with. She also places a focus on helping children to understand death. Last week I talked about ghosts, and with proper preparation and embracing of this life, passing and transition, we can allow ourselves to pass easily over to the other side without getting caught in the in-between spaces. We can easily embrace the light and help loved ones to embrace it as well. This is never an easy topic for people to discuss, and even though I feel that it is important with holidays upon us, as this time of year is when loved ones that have moved on come stronger into our hearts and our minds. Winter can bring harsh months for those that are nearing this transition, not to mention all the sudden deaths that happen from accidents and carelessness. No matter what our age, it seems wise to prepare for such a life transition, given the state of world affairs. Have you made peace with death? Are you ready to let go of yourself or a loved one when the time comes? Have you discussed any of this with children? Would you or a loved one be prepared to transition if a sudden event brought your passing? This week, our guest deals with a component of compassion that's related to the aspect in my books of not my problem. And this reminds us to care about others even when they are going through their challenges, to realize that we all have challenges, and while others' problems are not our worries, how we treat them is our responsibility. I'm going to take a short break, and when I return, I will have Maria Hoaglund with us, and she will be sharing her work on The Last Adventure of Life, Sacred Resources for Transition. And the song that I've got for you tonight is Dia Harmonies. It is by Claire Hedin. As I mentioned earlier, she was on our show back at the very end of December, and you can certainly go back and catch it in the archives. And if you'd like to find out more about her work and her music and the different projects she's involved in, because she does like nature projects and things like that too, you can go to our website, which is www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Oh, dear, dear little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. So thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you oh so deeply. And thank you, yes, thank you. We thank you for your visit. thank you. We thank you oh so deeply. And thank you. Yes, thank you. We thank you for your visit. Oh dear, dear little light, shine forth thy beauty. You came, you went, 'twas brief and rare. We loved you and we love you. So thank you, yes, thank you, dear, sweet in spirit. And thank you, yes, thank you, we thank you for your visit.
Welcome back. You are listening to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour, and my name is Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I am your hostess this evening. You were just listening to a song called Dia Harmonies. It's by Claire Hedin, and again, you can find out more about her work and music at www.clairehedin.com. That's CLAREHEDIN.com. And I'd like to bring on my guest tonight, who is Reverend Maria Dancing Heart Hoaglund. She is author and broad-based spiritual bereavement counselor. She authored The Last Adventure of Life, Sacred Resources for Transition. Maria has a unique cross-cultural foundation and universal perspective. She was born and raised in Japan, graduated Yale and the Chicago Theological Seminary. She served as a parish minister, a hospice spiritual and bereavement counselor. She bridges traditional religion with new spirituality. We are going to be discussing tonight the loss of those that have passed on, preparing for those that are ready to transition, and how to provide healing to these situations. And you can learn more about her work at www.changewithcourage.com, and that is at the bottom of our show description. And I'm going to get her mic opened up here. And Maria, I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time, and welcome to Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jessie. Appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure, and it's very interesting. I wasn't thinking about everything. I mean, I was kind of thinking about the season when I was planning this show with you, and I was like, oh, this would be such a great time to bring your work in, because so many people deal with death and dying over the holidays, and usually when the holidays come up, we really notice that if somebody, particularly if they've passed on during the year and it's the first set of holidays that they're spending without that person. And I know for me, for example, I had an uncle that passed at Christmas time, and my dad's birthday was on Christmas Day, and so since he's gone, it always comes up at this time of year, those sorts of things that are going on. And it just happened to turn out that we booked you for All Saints Day in the middle of Halloween, Souls Day. So I couldn't have picked a better time.
I know.
And but it's a real blessing, and I would love for you to just start off by sharing some of your background and what got you into this work and what got you on this path that you're taking now.
Yeah, well, I like to say that I was born a bridge builder because I was conceived in the States, and then my parents went over to Japan on a freighter to be missionaries, Lutheran missionaries over there, and had to study the language for 2 years. So I came along at a kind of a rough time for them. They had not an easy time, learning a foreign language for 2 years. But, that's when my bridge building began, I guess. And now I seem to be bridging not only East and West and have a vision for peace, but I'm bridging people from this world to the next, as well as from the more traditional tribal religion or more boxed-in religion to the new oneness, the spirituality of our times. So it's been a very exciting and interesting life always. And I started out in the parish ministry, mostly, though, because I wanted at that time to be a pastoral counselor. Little did I know that hospice would be the way for me, but I did do parish ministry for 10 years in Hawaii and then also the Seattle area. I went to the Japanese Congregational Church to serve that little congregation as a bilingual minister. But somehow the ministry wasn't working for me. I felt like the joy was going out of my life, and something was wrong there, because you want to have joy, not have it be depleted, even in ministry. So I was getting ready to leave this church, not sure what was coming next, and the word hospice literally came to me in a meditation, and I thought, whoa, pay attention. And it just so happened that my mother had died at home about 2 years before that. So in a way, I had gotten a foretaste or a little grooming there for what was coming. But the hospice door did open up for me about 6 months after that, and life has never been the same, I guess you could say, because hospice just taught me so very much about many things, but especially about the great mystery, and just helped me go deeper and deeper spiritually. So it's something I want to share with other people now, and this is why I've written several books, and why I keep coming back to the fact that there are many people in our world who are afraid of death. And what I've learned is really there's nothing to fear about death. Perhaps there's the fear of being in pain and, whatever illness comes sometimes before death. But the actual dying process is a liberation and a going home. And so it's wonderful to be able to share this news with people and to have people shift their perspective and be grateful that they don't need to be so fearful anymore.
I think you bring up a big point there, that it's maybe not so much death itself as it is the fear of being in pain, or I would say even perhaps the fear of the unknown, because even when we're taught that, to go towards the light, and we're taught that we're going to make this transition and this is kind of what we can expect, and there will probably be a loved one waiting for us to help us over, or different things like this. At the same time, we don't totally know, because there's no way that our human mind can get that experience, really.
Right. Right. We can only go by what we've heard from others sharing what they've experienced, for example. Right.
And so it does definitely seem like, to me, that's where a lot of the fear would be just that piece of unknown. And I don't know, I've heard a lot of people that have expressed, near the end, those that are perhaps somewhat prepared for it, that there seems to be a phase that they go through that is fear, but then they hit peace just after that.
Yeah, a kind of acceptance.
Almost like they've had a vision or something that has shown them what it's going to be. Yep.
In fact, I'll never forget death I heard about in that regard. There was a woman who my great aunt who was a psychic knew, and she, this woman was someone who, anybody would easily be friends with, and she made friends at the grocery store, and just a very spiritual woman. Well, she had been pretty much like in a coma, or, in and out, but mostly on the other side for, I think, a few weeks. And just before she died, she sat up and said, "I see hundreds of angels," and then laid back down and died.
Yeah, I think there's so many stories along those lines of things, and I just feel like this is such an important topic, like I said, especially this time of year where we're already emotional. We already have all of this energy rolling through us, and it is the time of year where we do tend to miss relatives, probably more than any other time of year. In there, just because there are so many, I would say, memories associated with holidays that go with people, and that's part of that intensity. And plus, you're seeing everybody around. You get to certain ages in your life, and you're seeing everybody else around, and they've got families, and they're doing things. And if you're a person that's kind of had most of your family passed on, and you don't really have any other family around, it really just kind of gets right in your face there.
Right.
Now, you refer to death as the last adventure of life. This is the title on your book. And would you share with us some of your concepts on death and what you see this process as being about?
Well, I might share first how that title came about, The Last Adventure of Life. I had a wonderful teacher who was one of my hospice patients, and she had decided that she had lived a full life and it was time to move on. And she was dealing with some kind of, I think it was lung cancer. So she stopped eating. She kept the oxygen going and she kept drinking fluids. But she said, I don't need to prolong this and keep eating. So she had stopped eating. And one day she said to me, Maria, I'm looking forward to the last adventure of life. And I thought to myself, wow, that is just so special to have switched the fear into more like curiosity and a feeling of adventure, about going into the next realm. And, as for my theory about death, I don't know that I have a theory, but I do believe that there's an afterlife. I've heard too many stories otherwise. And it's interesting to me that, for instance, in the Buddhist tradition, they have a priest or someone coming from the temple to read to the soul that's crossed over from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And, there seems to be quite an involved instruction process and so forth. But in the tradition I grew up, in the Christian tradition, there's more of a sense that when we die, we're likely going to be going through some kind of dark tunnel, and at the end of that is great light, and the light that some have seen or met is, Jesus himself, Jesus the Christ. So my sense of it is that whatever religion we are and whatever our understanding of death is, that may well be what we get. In fact, I saw a bumper sticker while I was doing my hospice work one day, and I made a very clear mental note of it. It said, "Don't die wondering." I thought, wow, that's kind of true, maybe, that, the more we know what we're going to get when we die, the more we may get it. In fact, I've heard it said that here on Earth, it takes a long time for us to manifest our thoughts and desires, but on the other side, it may happen in a twinkling of an eye. I don't know if any of you have read Embraced by the Light with Betty Eadie, but she talks about in her near-death experience that she learned pretty quickly that she could move very quickly with her thoughts. If she was thinking of her family, she found herself being able to go right to her family and be in their home and see what was going on. So, we may, we're already learning on this side of the veil that we need to be careful what we think because, it just could manifest. But that may be very true once we cross over, that what we think is what we're going to get.
That's a really interesting perspective. And I think that, if we look in this concept of something that is being omnipotent, for example, as most belief systems have, that there's an omnipotent creator out there, all-encompassing. And if that's the case, it very well could be that what we get is whatever our perception is or whatever path we've chosen to arrive there or things like that. And so, again, no per se right or wrong. We may get it in the way that's comfortable for us, just as we may get that relative or whoever we're comfortable with greeting us there, because that will help us make that transition easier. And I love that you brought up the aspect of near-death experiences, because with near-death experiences, now I've had a couple myself, and it is interesting. I think that people who have had those have a glimpse of what's there. They have a glimpse of the process of what happens.
Right.
And so I find that aspect very, very interesting in there.
Mm-hmm.
With it, and I don't know if other people have, I know there's so many different thoughts and beliefs on things when we talk about death. What I posted my blog for this week on this topic, there were just so many things from different people and their concepts, from very technical and the Bhagavad Gita and all the way through, very Christianized things, through very spiritual things, through people being very opinionated to people being very open to. It was very, very interesting to me. But I think you do touch on something, and it does make me wonder if those people like myself who have been through near-death experiences maybe to a certain extent are more at ease because they've already got a glimpse there.
Right. No, I hear so much, especially from, what was his name, the pediatrician in, Melvin Morse. Here's my black kitty here. She has something to say.
Welcome, Melvin. And how appropriate to join us on this show at Halloween.
So, Melvin Morse has done quite a bit of writing about his experience with children and near-death experiences. But where were we on that track? Let's see.
With near-death experiences and the being able to have a glimpse of things or being more at peace with things.
Oh, right. So he has a book called Transformed by the Light, in which he shares kind of a follow-up where he's followed up with children that, have grown up now and how the near-death experience has affected them. And almost always there's a positive spin on how these young people have felt the effects of the near-death experience, and typically they are clearer about their life purpose. They do not fear death. They're just clearer about who they are. And that was quite an enlightening book. That book, as well as, is it Children of the Light? Those two of his books spoke very, very profoundly to me. I remember reading, is it Children of the Light? Anyway, his first book. What's that?
It sounds familiar to me, that title.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I remember reading it while I was still in the parish, and it was around Easter, and I built a whole Easter sermon around that book because it was so, so much resurrection kind of theme in it.
Yeah, and I think that is a good point, that oftentimes it does give us a better direction on our path. It does shift our train of thought, very similar to having a serious health issue or something else that tremendously affects, and we realize, really how brief and short this life is. Even if you lived 100 years, it's so short in the scheme of things when we look at it. And our shift in perception from children who sit there and have no connection per se that death is going to occur. At least I didn't when I was young. I was just, life is there and it's going to go on and on to a certain extent. And I kind of had my own world that I was playing with. And I think even further on, and I think it's more like when we start to hit 30 or 40 or in these age ranges that are a little bit more up there, that we start going, oh my gosh, really my life is like half over. Or more. And it really does bring in this whole new awakening and sense of purpose and sense of understanding. And like I said, I know I've been walking that line a few times, and each time that has brought great transformation. So I very much agree with you on that. That's there. It's kind of like even as we near the end of life, we start to let go in a different way. We start realizing how many things we think are important really aren't that important.
Right. So what happened to you? May I ask?
Well, I've had a couple of things. I had one point where I was in a car accident, and I had hit black ice on the road. My car spun off the road, and I had a little red Miata at the time, and it ended up suspended in a tree branch down a hillside. Wow. And I completely lost track of time, completely went out of body, could see myself down in the car. And went through an experience at that time. I had another experience when I was living in Arizona, and I suddenly took very ill, and my temperature jumped to like 105, 106, and I could not keep my eyes open or anything else, and I was just pretty much someplace else because I was not a lot in body. I mean, I've been in spiritual and psychic type of work for basically all my life. I've had gifts, so my natural response is when my body's in trauma, I disconnect. My soul just kind of disconnects, and I can look down and I can see things. And I went through some very severe health issues at one point in my life that really woke me up quite a bit too. That just before I moved to Arizona, and it was taking me about 2 to 3 hours to get out of bed every day because I couldn't feel my legs and I couldn't see past the end of my bed. And that's part of why I moved to Arizona, was to do some healing and to simplify my life. And then after I'd been there a few years, they came to find out that there were many medical things going on with me, which ended up leading to me having, 6 or 7 surgeries over the course of 6.5 hours by 2 specialists. And basically they said there's no medical reason for you to be alive. You should have been dead years ago. So, I've had a few things.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So those near-death experiences definitely are very life-changing. But, now you also view death as the most important day of your life. And is there a way that people can prepare for death, or how does somebody prepare for death?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, actually, I took that out of some of the Buddhist thought that I've read about. But the more I thought about it, that made sense, that probably the day we're born and the day we die, and even the moment we're born and the moment we die, are some of the most, if not the most important times of our lives. And so in terms of preparing, I guess it would be different for everyone, depending on what they know or don't know and what they're afraid of or not afraid of. But more than anything, I would say it's good to explore and, read or start talking with people or have an experience with a psychic person perhaps, or a minister, or whoever you feel comfortable with to begin the conversation. Or maybe it's a family member. Maybe it would be good for a mother and daughter, or a father and daughter or son, to just talk about, well, what do you believe about death, or what have you read and what have you thought, or read a book together and then talk about it, or join a book club, or have your book club share a book like mine. There's another wonderful book I've been reading by Erica Brown called Happier Endings. And in that book, she has an interesting perspective on Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief. She says that they're not really stages because, you don't really go through one and then on to the next. It's more like they're all mishmashed in there and come up at all kinds of crazy times, sometimes when you least expect it. But then she says that the first, 4 or 5 of the stages are really under denial, because there's shock, denial, bargaining, depression, and maybe one other. But then finally you have acceptance. So she says all the ones that come before acceptance are really part of denial. And then she says there's acceptance, but in America we don't tend to accept death very well. So let's call it resignation. So she says then you have resignation. And then she says we can go one step further, which is to prepare for our death, as we're talking here, and call that inspiration. And I really liked that. I thought, wow, we can all become inspired by thinking and talking and preparing for our death, so that when it comes, it's not a big total surprise.
Right.
And I think of, like the young people. I mean, think of those firefighters who suddenly died, like 20 of them, in our neighborhood here in Arizona. And, I wonder if some of them knew what to expect. I mean, maybe being a firefighter, you learn to think about death and embrace death on some level. But, I wonder, too, if some of those young men didn't suddenly think, wow, what's happening here and where am I going? And it'd be nice to have a little bit of understanding before some tragedy like that happens.
I think you bring up a good point there because, so many times we expect it as we age in life, but then we have all these other things that happen, be it something like those firefighters or 9/11 or
Right.
a car accident or something like this. And, we're going through, and in one sense, I think professions like police officers and firefighters and things like this, in one sense, they realize by the nature of their profession,
Right.
there's that possibility they could die every day. But yet at the same time, they're not thinking that they're going to die every day. A lot of times I would say they're going forward like, I'm going into my job, I'm going into work, and I'm going to come out of this.
Right, right.
But at some point in the middle of it all, you kind of go, uh-oh.
Right.
I'm coming out of this one.
Right. Exactly. Because you hear about spirits who have to be told that they're dead and it's time to move on to the light, because maybe in the shock of it all, they're just not even aware that they've crossed over.
Well, and this is very interesting because my guest last week, Tina Irwin, and if anybody missed that show, I encourage you to go back and catch the archives on that. She was mentioning, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 90 to 95% of the people that pass need assistance passing or need assistance getting to the other side.
Wow.
In one sense or another, whether that is, relative greeting them or something, helping them across. But 90 to 95%. That's an exceptionally high number.
Yeah.
Of people.
Well, maybe that is partly because we have such a death alienating culture and world.
Mhm.
And I think that's changing.
Yeah, that, and I think all the trauma too that happens.
Yeah,
as
that's true.
Yeah, as war times increase and things like that, and she commented that there was just, and that's what she does, is she helps people cross over. And so, she says there's especially in these war areas and things, that there's just so many people that just they don't even realize that they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
But you were talking about sharing and how we can talk maybe to relatives, and it was interesting. It was reminding me that in my own family, I had relatives, a couple of relatives that would contact me right before they would pass. And I was getting that for a while. It was like they would just show up to me. I don't know if I had a natural receptivity to it or whatever. I'm guessing I did at that time in my life, and people would bring animals to me right before they were ready to go to help ease that transition. And so it is interesting that we start to learn these things. But one of the things I know that you deal with, or you have a little bit of information on your website about it, is how can we talk to children about death? Because I think that's an important thing. I think it's a hard topic for most people to approach with children without panicking them or worrying them or getting them scared.
Right. But maybe the reality is that children often handle death better than we adults do. They're so matter of fact about things, and they don't have so much angst, about and worry about life. And I think if we can talk to them on their level and make it as clear and simple as possible, sometimes they can come out with some amazing teachings for us too in the process.
Yeah.
Because after all, they're here more recently from spirit, and they may have an understanding that surprises us when we start talking with them about it.
Right. Well, yeah, and you bring up a good point, and especially where we've got this whole generation, where we've got the indigo generation, we've got the crystal generation, the up-and-coming rainbow generation.
Right.
And they are a little more in tune. Matter of fact, one of our people in our chat was making a comment here that says, I lost my grandmother, my brother, my grandfather, my father, and my best friend by the time I was 24. And I remain at peace knowing I have an army of angels on my side. And then also mentioned, as a child, you are resilient.
Uh-huh. That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's beautiful, because truly, I was thinking this when you were talking earlier about, those who have gone before us and how sometimes it can feel lonely. But if we can only switch that around and see it that we have all these friends and angels and helpers from the other side now, I remember thinking that after my mom died, that, well, now I know that at least somebody who really knows me is on the other side and maybe can help me in my moments of, challenge. And on occasion I've sort of prayed to her, you might say, or, asked her for help. And along the way I did learn that the Buddhists believe that when a loved one can help you on the other side or from the other side, they actually get kind of like brownie points for doing that. Kind of interesting.
It is interesting, and there are cultures that actually celebrate death because they acknowledge it as a spiritual accomplishment.
Right.
And I know that when I lived on the central coast of California, I went to, it wasn't the actual funeral, but they had kind of an after-funeral thing going on, and it was all about celebration because the person that had passed on, they had a request that they didn't want people just sitting around mourning and crying, that they wanted a gigantic party thrown. Celebration of them. And I think I had been to about 3 or 4 things like that along the way. And I always felt like, but this is so natural. This is so natural to throw this celebration. And it was so much more pleasant than everybody crying. And I think as humans, we're bound to feel some of that pain in there.
Right.
And it's a natural response as humans. But it really is about us when we're doing all of that. It's about appeasing our own emotions because everything I know from all the different belief systems I've studied and looked at had said, have reinforced that this is a time to celebrate. This is an accomplishment. This is like a graduation or things like that.
Yeah, or the African Americans say it's homegoing. It's time to go home.
Right. Yeah, and kind of big homecoming. How many people or creator or whoever is on the other side going, I can't wait to have you come home. I've been waiting for years.
Right. And then from this end, it's as wonderful as life is, there's a lot of suffering too, and we get to leave the challenges of this life to be in a more blissful, less conflicted place.
Yes, definitely, and it's kind of a shifting and a turning, and I guess that's where I've turned to in some of my thoughts is that it's another phase, it's a new phase. I mean, your soul goes on. The soul takes on a body basically as like a vehicle, and the soul doesn't end. So there's not actually a death to the soul. It's just that our body wears out, just like our cars wear out eventually.
Right. Right. Everything eventually comes to an end.
Right, and eventually we have to get a new car, and our soul eventually needs to do something else.
Right, right. And, this brings up an interesting piece. I want to recommend a little piece on, I guess it's Vimeo or whatever that's called, kind of a form of YouTube.
Oh, Vimeo. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's called Grief Walker. And it's a profound piece about a gentleman who does spiritual counseling, similar to the kind of work I've done. And he's also, though, a kind of shaman because he walks very closely to the earth and, has a beautiful connection with Mother Earth. And in that film, he talks about how not only does everything have an end, but we need to honor and respect and embrace that ending, even in the midst of enjoying the in-between parts of it. And about that time, after I had seen that and been struck by what he said, I watched the film, C.S. Lewis's, Shadowlands. It's about C.S. Lewis meeting the love of his life towards the end of his life. And it's a very bittersweet story because her name is Joy, and Joy develops cancer. And so he first meets Joy, and then they fall in love and get married, but then, Joy dies. And there's a section towards the end of that movie where Joy is talking to him. They're under a bridge or something, and she says, but you need to honor the end of my life too, or the end. Somehow she's talking about this, the end of their relationship and how it needs to be recognized and honored and maybe even appreciated. And I thought that was a whole nother perspective on all this.
Yeah, kind of like instead of being sorrowful over what's ending, being appreciative over what's been experienced.
Exactly. Yeah, thank goodness we found each other and we've had all these years together. Or thank goodness you chose to come in and has been my child, and that we've had this lifetime together. But, now it has to shift, and now one of us must leave. But thank goodness we could have the experience we've had together.
Right. Now, what suggestions do you have, Maria, for people that live with or have relatives that live with, for example, chronic conditions?
Yeah, that's not an easy one because it takes a lot of energy out of the people around the person dealing with the chronic illness sometimes. So I would say that the caregivers or the loved ones around someone with long-term illness have to really make sure they're taking good care of themselves. And that's where some of the holistic modalities that I honor could come into play. Things like essential oils and Jinshin Jutsu, some of the finger holds and points on the body that can be held to help us relax and rejuvenate. Even holding each of our fingers separately for 3 to 5 minutes can be a very relaxing, healing exercise. And
right, just hands up and spreading the fingers out.
Yeah, just taking your one hand and taking a hold of one of your fingers one at a time and gently holding each one, because that rejuvenates all the organs that are connected to that finger. And it also helps to release emotion. Like when you hold the thumb, you know how kids suck their thumbs? Well,
right.
they're looking for security, right? So we can release insecurity when we hold the thumb. And the thumb is for the stomach and the spleen, especially. And the index finger is helpful for fear. It's the bladder and kidney finger. So by holding that finger, we help get rid of fear. And interestingly enough, the middle finger is the anger finger. So I say, instead of giving somebody the finger, we can hold our finger, our middle finger, and help release our own anger. And that's related to the liver and gallbladder. And then the fourth finger is the grief finger, or the sorrow finger. And that's related to the lungs and the umbilicus, I think. And then I say we all need to be holding our pinky these days, because that's confusion and denial.
Especially
who's not in a little bit of confusion and denial these days? And that's for the heart and small intestine.
Interesting.
Yeah. But then, there are other ways that people can take care of themselves too, just to really tune into their being and know when they're stretched too thin, and find a way to get away and rejuvenate themselves. Or someone I was listening to, I think earlier today, said, one of the best ways to rejuvenate or to find your purpose is to go back into your childhood and write. I don't know why she picked the number 13, but she says write 13 pages front and back about what you remember you found joy and love in doing when you were a little girl or a little boy. And I thought, wow, that sounds like an interesting exercise.
It is, and they do tap into that. There's more and more coming out about, how that childhood self knows a lot of these things. I find this whole thing with the hands very interesting, because there is such an exchange of energy if we're holding somebody's hands, and I've done this with people in the past and worked their hands a little bit to help bring and things. And I know myself that when I've been in really stressed times of my life, I'll go through and just start massaging my fingers. Not even thinking about it. And I've learned various coordinations of what each finger on the hand means. So I love having this other connection here that you're providing with people. And I think this is very valuable if you know what somebody's dealing with, for example, with a chronic condition, which finger to focus on. And, for example, I was just thinking, I've had a lot of sugar the last couple of days. And it's interesting that when I go to my middle finger, which you say is the liver and the gallbladder, how there's a little bit of a tightness in that finger. And so it is those little things where our body is such a great tell-all system, because it doesn't go into denial. Our body does what it does based on what's happening. So I love that you brought that out. That was just really, really great that you brought that out. And so I definitely appreciate that. That was a big thing.
There's one other piece to that too, which is that the middle of the hand, the palm, is the harmonizing point. So you can hold your palm, or you can hold someone else's palm to help them harmonize. And I'm thinking, when you're comforting someone or you're just holding their hand by the bedside or something, you might want to slip your middle fingers into the palm of their hand, and that's a way of bringing harmony to their being.
And we see that in a lot of practices, particularly as it relates to connecting with partners or friends, along the way of the hands being held to each other. So yeah, I mean, it makes beautiful sense that is about that harmonizing factor and that exchange of energy in there. So what great, fantastic information to share. My mind is running right now about 1 million miles an hour of, just it gets a piece of information that's like, okay, it's all of a sudden, connecting like 20 other pieces of information to it. And I love when it does
I might
that.
mention that the chart for that is in my first book, The Last Adventure of Life.
Okay.
And people can find it there. People could also probably email me, although I'm not sure I have it now in the PDF format anymore. But I could send, if people sent me their address, I suppose I could send them the chart. And one of these days I need to put another YouTube up. I used to have a YouTube. It wasn't a great YouTube, but it explained these finger holds. And I've had other people say too, these are great. You could do a whole thing around the finger holds.
Yeah, and this is great. And doing this, as you say, particularly at this time of life of, as somebody's aging and somebody who's a caregiver, this is something that they can certainly do as well.
Right.
Very easy for this person.
They could do it for themselves, or they could do it for the person, their loved one, or the one they're working with. Both, yeah.
Yeah, this is one, and that's such a great connection because we really do need that touch with people.
Yes, especially at the end of life.
Right, especially at the end of life. We forget how important that is to open us up and to release things and to release our fear. And I think as people age, we have more and more difficulty in maybe hugging them or touching them because they do deal with more pain going on, or they do, they are more fragile, or they're more concerned with catching germs and things like this. And so it does in some ways get challenging, but I find that almost always the hands can still be held. Yes,
and maybe more than ever, they need the touch too, because their loved one maybe is no longer living, or they just are more isolated, and they appreciate that touch. It's very comforting.
Very comforting. It's amazing what a little bit of touch can do.
Yeah.
I wanted to share something that I found on your website with our listeners, because I just thought it was really a great aspect of information here. And this, by the way, for our listeners, is absolutely free. There's no having to sign up for her mailing list or anything to get this piece of information that I'm going to share. It is on her website, and you'll be able to find it on there in case you want to get it yourself. And this is an aspect that she put together of how we can comfort, or 10 ways to honor your grief. And this is something that Maria put together herself. And I should mention again her website, which is changewithcourage.com. And she's got her contact information and her email on there as well. And if you want to email her about this or about the hand things, you can do so. If I'm correct, Maria, it's dancingheart22@gmail.com.
That's correct.
Okay. So So this is 10 ways to honor your grief. Take one day at a time, doing one thing at a time. Number 2, it's good to let the tears flow. If you need to excuse yourself and find privacy, do so. Do not stuff your feelings. 3, let go of the idea of so-called normalcy. When you're in grief, normal time goes out the window. Since it's crazy time, strive to see the adventure and opportunities in it. See if you can enjoy doing things and being in new and creative ways. Number 4, prepare yourself for other losses. Everything is undergoing a change in your life. Number 5, ask for what you need. Remember to process your grief with friends, counselors, and whoever will listen. Number 6, exercise as much as possible. It's good to keep the emotions and energy moving. Number 7, sleep when you can or need to. You may become exhausted at times. Number 8, don't forget to eat. Easily done, but your body and stamina will pay a price. Number 9, reconnect with spirit and seek out new ways to develop your spirituality. Learn to meditate, for example. This could be one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself when you are going through a change of any kind. Number 10, honor your memories and intuition. By the way, meditating will strengthen your intuition. And this comes from her book, The Last Adventure of Life, the first edition, page 209, and in the second edition, it's page 172. This is wonderful. I mean, this is such a great aspect for those that have left behind, that are still living after somebody passes on. I think that too many people get wrapped up in so much that's happening in their life, and they have to go to work and they can't take the time off work, and they're told you just got to stuff those feelings down. But if you have to excuse yourself, go find your place that you can let the tears out. And I think this is an incredible list of guidelines, and we forget that physical energy, that physical motion and activity really does help us process things on a physical level, to release things, to be able to deal with things, walking, even taking walks. Fantastic in there. So I wanted to share with that because I thought it was such a great list of things to focus on and to do and to keep in mind.
Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me of that list too. I don't think it's in my seminar folder right now, so I'm going to have to go dig it out.
And it's not very often that people can get something wonderful like that without having to sign up for a mailing list. So that's greatly
true.
appreciated.
That's just available there, isn't it? Under my books or something. I forget which page, but
yeah, it's right there on your page. Let's see here. And I'm trying to think where I found that, and I should have probably pulled it up sooner on there. And I want to say maybe it was under articles or something like that, or maybe not, or maybe I'm not sure now where I found it. But if you search around on the website, you're going to find it.
I can find it while we're talking.
So. Yeah. Anyways, it will be on there. You'll find it. Just kind of move around a little bit, and you'll get there. And I should have definitely marked it somewhere in there. It was under books, and then right at the top under where it says books, under the books tab, there's 3 links there: The Last Adventure of Life, The Most Important Day of Your Life, and free grief pointer sheet, and it's the free grief pointer sheet.
Oh, yeah, that's the PDF over by the right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I got that from.
While we're on my website, I might point out some powerful YouTubes that are available, and you can find those under links. Go under Conscious Living under the links, and it's just a few down. Well, there's the website for the Death Cafe Worldwide Movement, which is a fascinating thing going on right now around the world. And then the next two, Facing Death, is a powerful piece by Gangaji, a enlightened woman being on the planet, lives in California, and she's sharing with 3 or 4 different people who are in deep grief, deep suffering and pain, and she does such a remarkable job of sharing her compassion with these people. And then the Grief Walker that I referred to earlier is the next one, and I would highly, highly recommend that you view those just to understand the compassion that's possible around death and grief. They're just remarkable, both Gangaji and Stephen Jenkinson, who is interviewed or kind of followed in Grief Walker.
And it is, and it's so important. And, as I mentioned to, my own work, I have a chapter, it's not specific to grief, but it is that aspect that we need to stop and think about, what do these people need? If we can set ourselves aside, and that doesn't mean, killing ourselves in the process, but just that openness, that compassion that takes into consideration where they're at, and how would you feel if you were down nearing that end of life, and things like that. These are important things to consider, what they're going through and what their feelings and emotions are, and things like that as well. Now, I do have a question that came in from the chat room, Maria, that says, how important is forgiveness of the self in preparing for death?
Oh, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably the most important piece as we prepare for death is forgiveness, and forgiveness of others, of course, but forgiveness of self is profoundly important. And in fact, I've been doing a practice called Ho'oponopono recently, and it really is one of the most profound and simple practices you can do, using 4 statements, and they are, I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, and please forgive me. And you're to say these in a way to God, or to the God self within you, And wow, that's really important. Another piece that comes to mind around forgiveness is Colin Tipping has a book called Radical Forgiveness, and it's a process called Radical Forgiveness too. And I believe in his book, I was sharing this morning, and so it's fresh in my mind, but he has a release letter you can download or you can find in his book, and I happen to have it here at my fingertips. Yeah, it's called the Release Letter, and you can date it and put your name in there, and it's a nice little letter to your high self. Dear higher self, I, so-and-so, hereby grant you, my high self, my soul, my superconscious mind, et cetera, that might want to hold on to unforgiveness for whatever reason, permission to release all of the misunderstandings, unfounded beliefs, misinterpretations, and misguided emotions, wherever they may reside, whether in my body, my unconscious mind, my DNA, my conscious mind, my subconscious mind, my unconscious mind, my chakras, and even my soul. And I ask all those who want the best for me to assist in this releasing process. And that's the beginning of it. But that's from page 272 of Radical Forgiveness, Making Room for the Miracle by Colin Tipping.
Very nice.
Yeah, you might want to check it out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you've got a ton of links on your website for things, and I do encourage people to just kind of go and play around and check out the videos and check out the links that she's got there, because it's really is a wealth of information that she shares. Now, Maria, you had expressed to me that you would like to share with us your meditation that's called Espli or Espli meditation.
Were we talking about the Heaven and Earth meditation or the Circle of Life, I wonder?
I don't know. It's you when you sent it to me, it's spelled ESPLY.
Oh, especially, I bet. Yes,
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Well, why don't I share the Circle of Life one?
Okay, whichever one you. I wanted to give you enough time to do it, so we probably about 20 minutes to work with. That you can get it in.
Yeah, this is a meditation I like to use with people who might be ill or in pain or struggling somehow, because it's a way to have them connect with loved ones wherever they may be, you know, whether they're in heaven or miles across the ocean or wherever. And then it's a way they can go back and touch in with that loved one without me, you know, because it's like a guided meditation. So once you do it, you can do it again and again wherever you are and in your own privacy too. So shall we go ahead?
Yes, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, I invite us all to get into a comfortable position, either sitting or it could be lying down. And let's just take some nice deep breaths and get very relaxed and honor ourselves and our bodies. And I'd like you to see yourself in your mind's eye as you're relaxing, going up or down a path out in nature somewhere, someplace that you love, someplace that you've been perhaps, or maybe not, but you can picture wherever you like in your mind's eye. Picture a lovely path where you're walking toward a place that you'd love to be in. And as you walk on this path, picture everything around you. See and experience as much as you can with the senses, the colors, the smells, the sounds. There may be birds chirping. There may be the beautiful autumn colors on the leaves. You might hear water trickling or water gushing or roaring in the background. Or you may be on a beach and you might hear the waves lapping. Just picture whatever it is that you're in the midst of. And after you've walked for a little ways, then picture yourself coming into a large open area, maybe a meadow, or if you're on the beach, maybe an area that's bigger, full of sand, and just a nice area where you can sit and there'll be room for other people there too. So find a comfortable place to sit down in this open space. And again, notice everything around you. Enjoy the texture of whatever you're touching on your feet and your hands. And notice everything around you. Look up at the sky and see all the beauty, all the grace around you. After you've melded into this beautiful place in nature, I gradually invite you to welcome in your circle of love. And this circle of love is here for you, is here with great love and appreciation just for you. And you can visualize and experience anyone that you want here. Could be someone who's died and been gone from your life for a long time. It could be someone who's still living and very much a part of your life. It could be someone who's a spiritual teacher or a spiritual master, spiritual being on the other side who you've never really met in this lifetime anyway, but someone you respect and love deeply. It could be a fairy, an angel, a pixie. It could be anyone really, someone that you know through a fairy tale. Or it could be an animal. Maybe you have a power animal that's important to you, or a pet that is with you or that you've lost for some years now. And it could even be trees. I remember hearing, some people have difficulty with other people, so it's hard for them to visualize any person. So it could even be the trees and the flowers. So see in this circle anyone who you like and anyone who seems to want to come and be there with you. And notice who shows up. Take some time to look around this circle of love and welcome each one who shows up and honor their presence. Look into their eyes. Give thanks for their being there with you at this time in your circle of love. And now I'll give you a little time to be in this circle of love as you enjoy and appreciate each one who's coming in, each one who shows up. And notice if some of them might have a message for you, or some gesture, or some connection. See what the connection with each one holds for you. And I'll just let you be with this for a little while right now. And you might even wish to have a conversation with one or more of the loved ones in the circle of love. Let yourself just be with whatever comes. You may feel that it's just your imagination, but that's okay. Just go with whoever is there and whatever feels right to share. So now gradually I would invite you to get ready to say goodbye to your circle of love for now. You can always come back to this place anytime that you wish to connect with your loved ones and feel this love again. But for tonight, we'll say goodbye. So take a little time to look around the circle and again give thanks for those who have shown up and honor them for coming to be with you. And you might like to give some of them a hug or a bow or a namaste in thanksgiving for their time with you and their love and their expression of great love for you. And after you have been able to say goodbye to each one, maybe you find yourself there back alone again in the open area that you sat down there in the circle. And you might look around and give thanks for the earth and give thanks for the beauty that you're in. And give thanks for the connections you just made with some of your loved ones. And when you're ready, you can pick yourself up from that spot and bit by bit make your way down the path that you came up to get there. And gradually notice the path that you came up, see it now as you are walking in the opposite direction back to where you started. And take plenty of time. There's no hurry, but when you're ready, you can gradually wiggle your toes and move your fingers. Gradually come back to this reality, the other reality. And always knowing that you can go back to this circle of life at any time to receive good support and good love from a vast array of loved ones that are out there for you.
And this is, I think, very powerful experience that Maria is providing us with. And I'm giving everybody kind of a chance to come out of things a little bit here. As you kind of come back around and wake and reconnect with your consciousness here. And this path and this process, and Maria, I want to honor you and thank you for for sharing this with us.
You're very welcome.
I think it's so powerful for us to connect and to remember and to take these moments to really see, the support system is there. And I'm getting a comment from our chat room from David. Very nice meditation. Thank you. I know myself, I was drawing in some very powerful totems for myself, and it's always interesting to me when we open up and see who shows up, for example, in a show like this. And it really lets us know who's very present with us, and it lets us know that even if we don't have anybody on the face of this earth, that we always have this circle spiritually with us.
It's
and
true.
Surrounding us. Yes.
Yeah, because we can easily feel sorry for ourselves and feel very alone sometimes. But truly, there's tremendous wealth out there when we just tap the surface and, go deeper.
And I have to say, I'm not surprised often in meditations because I've done so much work with it, and I usually know who's going to show up. And I was actually surprised to see who showed up for me right now, and who didn't show up. And I think sometimes that's equally as interesting to me, who didn't show up as much as who showed up.
Yeah.
And the energies that arrived and what they represented and how they work together and things like that too. So it's there's so much on this, and I encourage people to go back and maybe make some notes of what you experienced during Maria's meditation, because there are likely to be patterns and things in those notes or something that's connecting to your current life that may be going on that will come to you later, or you may want to go back and look at over the next day or two, or things like that as well. Or other things may come back and you go, wait, I think I remember something about that in this meditation we just did. So, Maria, I want to give you a couple of minutes here to go ahead and provide any kind of little closing thought that you want to give people. Give them, again, your contact information, and let you kind of go ahead and wrap up your segment of things here.
Okay. Well, I do have a couple of other websites that I might mention. The holistic things that I've shared tonight are actually, I put them together in Japanese-style bundles. And I'm called these soul baskets. They really maybe should be soul bundles. But you can go to soul, S-O-U-L, baskets.com, and you'll see these actual bundles that I put together. And you could gift these to your loved ones or, people going through transitions of all kinds. And I can customize them. I have some that are more or less ready-made, but I have different CDs and different oils available that I include, and then I include my information sheets that include some of the finger hold things and the relaxation pieces that I shared tonight. They're really unique and meaningful gifts to give to people, and you can also purchase some of the CDs and oils separately. If you scroll down on the baskets page, you can purchase these and see what I have available. And then I also have gotten involved in quite a bit of energy work, which I have a combination of methods that I use. And one of them is called running the bars. It comes out of Access Consciousness, and it's holding 32 different points on the head to help release old beliefs and old mental patterns. But you can go to runningthebars.com to see more about my energy work. Or I also have the same website at sedonaenergymaria.com. And there you'll be able to read more about the energy work I do, the specials I have going. I have a special, well, I had a special. I guess today's a new month, isn't it? But I've had a special going in October, which I could offer you for a few more days in November, both a one-time session and then a 3-package session or sessions. And these are all doable long distance. We could have a short connect by phone and or email. Skype is doable too. So all of these modalities can be used, and they're especially helpful when you're feeling a little bit stuck in your life and you feel like you could use some resetting and letting go of some blockages so that you can move more swiftly towards your dreams, your hopes, and your goals. So that's kind of what I wanted to add at the end, I guess. And I think for the prayer at the end tonight, I might like to use the Melchizedek prayer, and I'd like to emphasize our prayers, kind of directing them toward Japan, because I grew up in Japan and that's kind of my home country. I've been in quite a grief state on some level because of what's happened in Japan and the ongoing devastation with the radiation. And it just so happens right now that there's a light transmission that the foundation called Children of the Sun are doing for Japan between the two eclipses. The lunar eclipse that started on the 18th of October and the solar eclipse that's coming up on the 3rd of November. So there's about 2 more days to do this light transmission. But I would just invite us to pray for Japan and the oceans as we wind up our time together here tonight. And I'll share the Melchizedek prayer because it's such a short, beautiful, simple prayer that includes all living beings. And it goes like this. May there be love, truth, beauty, trust, harmony, and peace for all living things everywhere. Aho. Amen. So be it, and blessed be.
Beautiful. Beautiful on there.
We all, too, connect today, even tonight, with our loved ones on the other side and remember and honor them in however we wish. But this would be a beautiful day to continue to remember and honor our loved ones in spirit.
Very much so. And what a wonderful closing to our segment with you, Maria. I want to thank you very, very much for being here and sharing your wisdom and sharing this meditation with us and your work. And as you say, very, very appropriate to right now and everything that's happening. And definitely we do need to remember people all around the world
Yes.
that are going through shifts and changes and adjustments and all of these different things. So many, many thanks to you for being here tonight.
Oh, and thank you for having me, Jessie. And I appreciate your work and ongoing shining the light. May we all shine that light as brightly as we can.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And next week here on our show, we are going to have Wendy Gormley-Kester, and she is going to be discussing her work with essential oils. We'll be looking at her work in creating oils and oil blends that move body, mind, and spirit. And I have to say, I have been in person in Wendy's shop in California, and having done oil blends myself in the past, I can attest that she does some incredible ones, and she's very meticulous in her work, and you'll definitely want to tune in and see what she's doing with that. My books on relationships have been released, and you can find the links to check those out and purchase them at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. They're designed to help you activate the perfect relationship for you. You will learn how to find, develop, and maintain your perfect relationship, and you're going to learn how to understand what your partner is thinking, feeling, needing, and how to communicate in ways to strengthen your relationship and avoid drama. I'm working on putting together the next Compassion Tour. You'll be able to stay up on different things that are happening with that at JessieAnnNicholsGeorge.eventbrite.com. And if you'd like to find out, again, about more of the services and the video tips and all the different things that I have going on, right there on my website, the link's at the bottom of the show as well. There's also a great section on there for Main Street Universe where you can follow all of our hosts there and catch up on upcoming shows as well as check out the archive shows, learn a little bit about the people that are involved here at Main Street Universe, and this information is also all listed at the bottom of today's show description. My special for the month of November is short coaching and reading sessions, and I'm doing 10-minute sessions for $15, 20-minute sessions for $30. To find out more how you take advantage of those sessions, you can go to my website. It's right there on the home page for you. And I've also started providing online courses, and the great thing with those is even if you miss a course or you come in the middle of a series, you can still purchase the courses that have already been done. They're available as recorded versions on that. So lots of options with there. There's a lot of things in the $10 to $25 range. I do have some things that go up to $50 on those courses that are longer sections of courses in there. So that's worth checking out. And you can check that out at learnitlive.com/invite/JessieAnnNicholsGeorge. And I want to mention our producer, Daniel, is a songwriter and musician, and he has some of his work up for review and consideration, and we're asking if you're willing to do so, lend him a helping hand to support him by going to songwriter.revimage.com/channels/Daniel+Michael+, and I'll type that into chat for some of you that are watching in chat, and that is, let's see here, HTTP. Get that written in here in just a moment. If I can get all my typing done here quick enough. There you go, and that will, it looks like it's right in there. That'll get you into his area, and all you need to do is find the little share icon right above the video screen and share it, and that's going to help him out tremendously if you don't mind doing that. That's going to be going on through November 9th, and we appreciate that. He's got some great music coming out, a CD that he's working on called The New Old Ways, and very exciting music on that. Don't forget that we've got several shows here on Main Street Universe throughout the week. Sunday nights we have Darren Bouquet, who's a reader at Madame Laveau in New Orleans, doing spiritual insights. Monday nights is Kevin Baird walking on the sidewalk with his Horizon Oracle Journeys deck, a deck that he created. And if you'd like to check out more about that deck, you can do so at templeofgaia.com. Tuesdays we have Susan Weed, who is sharing her work in herbs and natural plants. Wednesday nights is our flagship show, and that's hosted by Daniel, Janice, and Brett. And we actually just did our 3rd year anniversary for the network of Main Street Universe. So if you missed last Wednesday's show, it was really fun to be a part of, listening to people that are current as well as people that have gone before. Check that out. And, of course, right here Friday nights is Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. This is Jessie Ann Nichols George. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I look forward to seeing you back here next week as we delve more into Activating Compassion. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed the show this evening, share it with others. It's going to be available at this same link in our archives. I'm going to leave you tonight with the song Yearning For, also known as Over and Over by Shemshai. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again next week right here on Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. May you enjoy the rest of your weekend and have an amazing week.
If I could see what makes I would soar to the edge of my mind and to touch what seems unreal, just to show you the way that I feel. And we are in time with time, one with the season of change inside. And we are in tune with the tune, caught in a balance of sun and moon. Oh, deep inside, the light within, shining to show you it's here to begin. When all I have is all I need, I will soar to the edge of eternity. And we see it eye to eye, one within love to be for the divine. And we're walking hand in hand, caught in the balance of God and man. Over and over, life is your lover, learning to walk just a little bit slower, whispering secrets, I bet you can't keep it. No turning back now, this time we reveal it. One to another, all will discover the essence within the most beautiful lover. Time is still turning, the love is still burning. Deep in your spirit, your heart is still yearning for. Yearning for.
Still burning,